Look, I've got a veritable jungle of greenery here, and we're going to mix it all down into a paste and we're going to put it on pasta, and it's going to make us so happy. We're doing pesto. I know it's a throwback to the 90s, but bear with me because we're going to run with our love affair of stinging nettles because they're happening at the moment. What I didn't realise, and thank you for comments that have come in enlightening me, I didn't realise that stinging nettles don't just come up everywhere like weeds. So sorry about that, because we just have them everywhere around the farm, and I thought, oh, you know, we're always trying to kind of get rid of them, really. And so I didn't imagine that people would say to me, oh, I've had one potted for a while, and I'm like, what? You've had one potted? That's just, oh. And then, you know, another friend of mine said, you know, because they're such a great indicator of soil health, I was like, right. Okay, so if you can't get your hands on nettles, it's all right, just make the pesto. Well, it's not really a pesto, it's more of a salsa verde kind of thing. Ooh, which reminds me, I need to get my capers that are just over here. So with nettles, the reason that I'm kind of chucking them in everything is because I have them. I have seen them at markets, amazingly. I did have a giggle at that at the time, but now I can see that, yeah, you can have a laugh at me. But the thing is that if you can get hold of them, great, make sure they're not sprayed. Make sure they're not sprayed, because obviously they are considered a weed and most people don't want them in their house. I mean, my dad thinks I'm absolutely nuts when I go out and pick nettles, firstly, nurture them, well, in as much as we don't get rid of them, and then bring them inside and eat them. He's like, yeah, I can't understand you. So that's all right. But he's eaten this nettle pesto before. Don't tell him that. Oh God. No, he never watches this. It's going to be fine. All right. I've just gone with whatever I have currently. So as far as salsa verde is concerned, it's not exactly the same as pesto. I mean, the process is we're just going to bang everything in here and whiz it down to a paste. But the ingredients can have a lot more variability, and that's what I like about salsa verde. So let me run you through some of the alternatives that I do, because, and I know this is sacrilege, I know, but I actually don't put garlic in my pesto or my salsa verde all the time. I know. But what I do is put the tips of chives, so that you still get that beautiful flavour that you're looking for with garlic, but it's softer. And I also use whatever herbs I've got going on. So oregano, fennel tips, parsley, mint, and the nettles. So no basil in this, by the way. If you want to put it in, sure. I mean, really, put anything in here that's green and leafy and growing in your garden. You can throw kale in instead of the nettle if you want to do that. That's a really good powerhouse of nutrients as well. And then for the salt, because I don't put Parmesan in here. In fact, I actually don't like even a plant-based cheese on my salsa verde. I think it's got enough flavour going on, and really quite strong flavours, that I don't tend to look for cheese, but I do look for salt. So the way that I add salt is by using preserved lemons. Now, these are some that I've done last season. I've got to do another load of preserved lemons this season. But this will give you that beautiful salt aspect, so don't rinse them. I know when normally you use preserved lemon, you rinse them, but just in this case, don't. And we're not going to use that much anyway. I probably won't even use both of those pieces, but just so that you can see, I pulled the flesh out of the centre of the preserved lemons. If you're making risotto, it's another great way of salting risotto without Parmesan cheese. But if you're using risotto, you can actually put the flesh of the lemon into the risotto as well. It's just a bit full on as far as the tang factor in a salsa verde. Okay, so let's get started. Fennel has that amazing licoricey flavour, so I love that. Our chives can go in. Strip the oregano off. The proportions of this are going to be your individual stamp on your salsa verde. So if you really love to have lemon thyme, for example, which is another delicious addition, then you might want to be a little more heavy-handed with that than you would with the fennel. I love having mint in salsa verde. Just gives it that freshness, that kind of, I was going to say height. You know what I mean? When you taste something and there's a flavour that sits up the top. So obviously don't put the stem in with that. I'm putting this with a brown rice pasta today, just because that's a delicious alternative as well. I don't know if you've tried any of the gluten-free pastas. Personally, I love gluten. I don't see any issues with gluten when it comes to the way that I eat. It's never really bothered me, but I understand that if that's a thing for you, it can be kind of tricky to find a nice pasta. I mean, there's a lot of pastas, but it's good to have something that you actually feel happy eating. Now, with the preserved lemon, I am just going to cut these into little strips because I don't want there to be a bit of a chunk in one part of the salsa verde. And like I said, that's your salt factor. You know what else I've put into pesto? I'm just thinking if you're sitting there going, oh, I don't have preserved lemon. We'll have to do that. Shall we do that as an episode? That would be good, actually. Super simple, but then you've got that condiment that sits there that you can just throw in so many things. So if you're unable to get your hands onto preserved lemon, you can put olives in this as well, green olives, and some capers. Now look at these little guys. So I've made these from nasturtium seeds. You don't have to have these on hand either, and I will completely understand if you don't. That could be another episode. Right, when the seeds are in season, we'll do that as well, because it's one of those beautiful aspects of actually having a garden and being able to take things right the way through their growth cycle, rather than when you see stuff in supermarkets or even at markets where you're probably just focused on the fruit or the vegetable aspect of the plant. But when you have access to the seeds and the flowers and the extra leaves, I mean, it's just great. It gives you a whole new take on how you can cook. And what do we do in lieu of pine nuts? Well, you can do pine nuts if you want, but I'm going to put hemp seeds in. So the hemp seeds are beautifully soft as well. You know how pine nuts have that lovely, almost creamy kind of texture, don't they? And especially once you've pureed them, you find that you've got that yummy, soft kind of mouthfeel when you eat your salsa verde. These mimic that beautifully, so we'll pop that in. 1/4 cup, something like that. I will have all of the exact amounts on the website, so don't panic. And nettles. Now, these are the ones that we're going to be just a little bit careful with. Don't put the stems in, there's no need for that. They're gnarly enough. I have 4 stems of nettle. These are just so good for you. The iron, the vitamin C, the fibre, the chlorophyll. Oh, and if you're panicking about the sting factor, don't, because it won't be a problem. You can blanch it if you're really worried, but as you know, I make smoothies with these, so, and a lot of smoothies, so if anything was going to happen, I would know. But the sting is just, it's a protein bond, and it just disintegrates. All right, noisy part. Oh, that smell is amazing. It's just coming out of that little... Yum. Yum, yum, yum. I think I like salsa verde so much because there's just no rules. Okay, what I usually do is, as with everything, a good whack of olive oil on there. And then I just kind of, I think the technical term is jup this across everything. Of course you can serve a separate little jar if you want to. Please, if you are using the lemon, please don't salt this as well because, you know, it's the old saying, you can always add. Very difficult to take away. And you'll be surprised at how much salt there is in a little strip of preserved lemon, especially because we didn't rinse that. Okay, now to make it a little bit pretty, well, that wasn't the pretty part. Let's do some extra hemp seeds, because if we're going to do any kind of vitamin boost to anything, it's got to be about hemp seeds, right? And I've saved some of the mint. And I'm just going to put a few more of these capers for a little bite. Look at that. Shall we sit down and have some pasta? This is totally to share, obviously. And actually, so is this. So is this entire episode. Make sure you share it with people, especially if you're having trouble, you know, coming up with new ideas. You're bored with what you're cooking and you just want something, but you don't want it to be tricky. Salsa verde, it's a different take on pesto, and then, you know, you've got another reason to put pasta on your plate.